Welcome to the O.W.P. This is our wrestling podcast. This is Dave along with Jess.
Hello, David. My name is Jess.
And Cuz.
Best regards.
Don't forget Craig.
Rest in peace.
Bringing you our perspective on the world of professional wrestling. No inside sources, no ties to the industry, just stories from the diehards, sharing opinions with you. And now on to our topic today, The Last Ride. Hit us up on Instagram at OWP2019. Click on Linktree. You can find us on several platforms, including Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and don't forget, we are also part of the Wrestle Hub family, all about wrestling podcast. Find them at the Wrestle Hub on YouTube and Instagram. What's going on, guys? Nothing.
What's up, bud?
Well, we're doing the little episode called The Last Ride. For those of you that have been living in a hole, which I guess most of us have, hopefully you've caught The Last Ride 5 sessions on the WWE Network. If not, we highly recommend it. That's what we're going to talk about today. We don't normally go over current events. This is a little bit different because this really truly is The Undertaker's last ride. It sounds like the official retirement is in effect as of this week, no?
Yeah, it's been a crazy kind of summer, right, in 2020, and I think there's a lot of parallels. The Michael Jordan Last Dance aired on ESPN, and in the middle of quarantine, it's what everyone watched on ESPN. It's the only sports that you had, and then that was followed up by the Last Ride, WWE Network's version of The Undertaker, the first time you've seen kind of Mark Calloway introduced out to the world in 5 episodes, 5 hours of Mark Calloway. So and with it culminating with his retirement, and there's going to be a lot of spoilers in here, so I don't know if you want to watch it if you haven't seen it, but I don't think it's critical to have seen it to enjoy this episode. But I think in all of us, what we were discussing, it's just a great time and timely with his retirement, just to go over overall thoughts of this episode and The Last Ride and our initial thoughts. And he's done a bunch of press. Mark Calloway has an Undertaker to break out of character for the first time in 30 years. It's just such a crazy, interesting time. And I'd love to hear your guys' all thoughts about not only Last Dance, but Mark Calloway coming out, and is the retirement like real? And then what's going on? So it's not so much a legacy episode as it is more focused on this documentary and the first time we've seen Undertaker outside the mask, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I get it. Jess?
Yeah, no, I think, he's more like the Cal Ripken rather than the Michael Jordan, I think, of the wrestling world. His longevity is going to be unmatched. I don't think anybody can really match it. Even the last 5 years, 6 years, whatever, he's been only showing up at Mania. It doesn't matter. He shows up and then he will crush it, and do at least have one of the top 3 matches on the card that night, if not the best. And so I think, a lot of people do, like Craig said, obviously it was put out to kind of match the Last Dance docuseries for Jordan, but I wouldn't call Taker the Jordan of wrestling. I think that's for somebody else. I think that he's the Cal Ripken. He's the long guy, but he's dependable. And every time you counted on him, just like every time you counted on Cal, he would effectively do the job you ask him to do very well. And I think that really describes the Undertaker. He's been wrestling for longer than 30 years, but he joined the WWF in November of 90 as the Undertaker character. And for almost 30 years, we have known him as the Undertaker in whatever shape or form he decided to present to us. We know we'll talk later about the different Undertakers he morphed into. But there's nobody that's going to match his longevity. There's nobody that's going to match his work ethic. There's nobody that's going to match his loyalty to Vince. I think if WCW didn't go out of business, I think Sting would have stayed in WCW. He's the Sting version of the WWF, or maybe Sting was the Undertaker version of, WCW. I don't know how you want to word it, but that's how I compare him. It's funny that people always wanted to see a Sting versus Taker match, because they were both the guys that never left, that never jumped ship during the Monday Night Wars, yes, Taker came from WCW as Mean Mark McAllis, but it's those two guys were always compared because they never left. And then, of course, WCW was bought out, so Sting had no choice to go to TNA and then go to WWF eventually. Taker has been there throughout the entire time. The ups, the downs, the all the titles, all the character changes. He really is like, he might be the greatest character Vince has ever created. I think he is actually the greatest character that Vince ever created.
Yeah, and I think the themes that resonate. I think you're right, Jess. He's definitely not Jordan, but I think the parallels between Last
Scottie
Dance and
Pippen.
Last Ride is they focus on like legacy. The reason why Jordan allowed footage from that final NBA championship led to like, is it going to be me or LeBron that's kind of better? And it's about like what your legacy is. And I think the same with Undertaker too. Why now let WWE cameras into your world? And I think this documentary took 3 or 4 years to put together. And then both these guys are both also known as the most private guys in the world. Like Jordan, you never really know who Jordan was. Same with Undertaker. Like he never dropped his gimmick. Like, so it was just interesting to see these 5 hours of getting to know Mark, you guys, right?
Cuz what say you, man?
Man, what a session. Scottie Pippen, right? Is that who we're going to compare him to instead of Michael Jordan? He's the Scottie Pippen of wrestling.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
I don't know. I'm just fucking around. No, but
I don't think
you know,
you're wrong.
it's big. Well, touche. Yeah, big part of my childhood memory, man. I would say he's up there. I mean, you know, we always talk about, or everyone always talks about Jericho being really versatile and being able to adapt and change his character and longevity. I think you put Undertaker right up there with that. And he was always like, it's obviously when he was the Dead Man, it's kind of the same character, but you know, he had like the Ministry of Darkness Undertaker, which is actually one of my favorite ones. The Biker Taker, his original classic Dead Man. Even the Dead Man now is more different because, you know, he's more like he utilized MMA and stuff. But Undertaker, man, he's been around for decades and he's a big part of history. And whether you liked him or not, you know, he's up there with, gotta say it, brother and Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Yeah.
He's the top 3. They're the top 3 of WWE. Fuck The Rock.
Oh, wait, hold on. Well, that's a discussion for another time. We're not talking about comparisons. We're not talking about who's on Rushmore today, but
Shut up.
you know, no, we're not going to talk about that. But I know not everybody got a chance to watch all the 5-part series, but let's talk about some of the portions of the 5-part series that you guys were really struck by. Like you're like, oh, I didn't see that coming. What was it, Jess? What was it for you about the 5-part series, The Last Ride, that was really like, wow, that was amazing?
I mean, I think just like everybody else is going to say, it's the first time he's done like little shoot interviews back in like 02 and 04, I think, or 05 or something, where he's talked in his normal voice. But this whole series was him being a regular person. And, you know, with his finally revealing, you know, I mean, I know everybody knew who his wife was, but he talked with her on the series and talked about her, talked about his kids, and just kind of was a real person, which you never saw. I really liked seeing the scenes where he was with the NXT guys and the way they kind of reacted to him. They were all trying to act too cool for school in that one scene, but yet they all realized after all their sentences, like, that's the fucking Undertaker right there, like right in front of me. And so it's just kind of cool that they had to see that. I like watching the young people's humility, like when they see someone big like that, because you always think about, you know, he hasn't allowed us to see this footage. So how many times do you see footage of the Raw 20th anniversary, 25th, whatever, you know, they're doing, and you see backstage Stone Cold back there, or The Rock, or Foley, or whatever, and you've seen that a bunch of times. I'm not saying it's not cool to see them out of character like that, but to see the Undertaker sit at a table of all big dudes that are all learning, and them just kind of looking at him like, oh shit, like he's really sitting in front of us right now. Like that was kind of, I've never seen Taker that vulnerable before, like sitting there. Yeah.
I promised Matt Bloom that I would come down here and work with some of their big guys. I'm pretty sure they were all fairly nervous.
A lot of times guys, they don't look genuine because they're trying to be something that they're not. And that's a difficult thing to figure out.
And once they found out
The shock and awe.
shred 'em, I think they
There was a couple of things like that for me too. I want to get back to the youngins in a second, but you know, for me personally, I in hearing Mark Kelly for the first time in my mind really talk about the things that, you know, he loved, or the things that really bothered him, I was very impressed. And the Undertaker has grown on us. We booed him when we were kids. We were kind of sick of it. It's kind of like another Super Cena before there was Super Cena. Undertaker was always getting over like, oh, I'm so sick of it. Just booed him all the time. You know, we'd make kids cry. We talked about it earlier before the recording
Did
started.
Vince had to tell him to get in character for this documentary?
I don't know.
Well, Vince, I tell you what.
Yeah,
It's fucking.
but what's really happening when you see Mark Calloway talk is he was so adamant about taking care of the person in the ring with him, which you think most wrestlers would be, but I think he considered that more than most. He was so, if he flubbed a move, Roman Reigns comes to mind where he couldn't quite get that final move in. You can see he was disgusted with himself. He was so upset. Maybe not for flubbing the move, but he could have hurt somebody, and that really bothers him. Also, you know, and Michelle McCool kind of made statement to it for the young guys when he was in Florida. Every time he's in Florida, he's at the Performance Center helping out all those young big guys to show them how to be successful big guys. And I thought that was pretty cool. You don't hear people talking about
great.
Mark Calloway in that sense. And I don't think he would want to be talked about in that sense. He's so humble. Those are the kind of things that I didn't know going into this particular segment of reality TV, if that or documentaries, if you will. That's what really sunk with me. It was pretty cool, you know. And I'll take all the botches and all that with it. It's fine.
And a perfect example of the power of this, like my wife, who's watched me watch wrestling for, I don't know, 25 years, whatever it is, 30 years. And she watched all 5 parts, and her biggest takeaways was like, she's like, I'm watching a guy dealing with someone, and at its basic level, she made so much sense. I'm watching a guy dealing with getting old, and I'm watching a guy having a problem walking away, and I'm watching a guy who's manipulated. She had a lot of strong thoughts on Vince. We'll get to talk to this, like, I think a little bit later.
Oh, my wife
like,
too, yeah.
she's like, why doesn't he just not call him? Why can't Vince just let him walk away?
You
Vince
can't.
Is the master
Vince
kind
has
of
this
manipulator of people.
Yeah, Vince knows that every wrestler has that burning inside them. They never want to leave 20,000 people screaming. Vince knows that because Vince is like that himself. Even though he's not in front of the camera anymore, Vince can't leave this magic. So Vince knows that people like Taker, Flair, even Hogan to a certain extent, Austin, they all need it. They all want it back. They all, if Vince calls, they're like, hello. Hi, Vince, hi. Like it's like they were sitting on their phone waiting for his call. Yeah, I'll be at Raw 30th. Oh, totally. Yeah, like Vince knows that, and maybe that's good or bad. And he's preying on the Undertaker like that, but Undertaker says it himself. I'm gonna write my own story. I'm gonna be done when I'm gonna be done. And I think that was the big takeaway for me from this was just like, yeah, you finally got to see him. I got a lot at once, right? We've never seen him this personal, and then we get everything at once. Like, especially the end of this long career. Nobody, even the documentary to me, didn't really show you the grand scope of his career. It's long. It's long.
Just the last 3 years, right?
Yeah.
Like, not even close.
And if there's anything that this documentary left open, and it's a big anything, it's that he could still do a Legacy of the Undertaker DVD and people or whatever they do now, digital download, whatever they want to do. There's still a 3 or 4 hour documentary they can do from the day that he stepped foot at Survivor Series all the way through now. All his matches with Hogan, with Jake, with The Warrior, with Savage, with Yokozuna, with
Brett.
Austin, with Brett, with Sean. The Hell in a Cell matches alone could be a whole documentary. Like, you know, it's like
Mick.
there's so many things that they still can do with him now that he's broken character and kind of shown us his vulnerable side. I look forward to not only him being put in the Hall of Fame, but all the DVDs, the best of Takers coming after, like the actual documentaries of him talking about, like I said, all the earlier stuff, how he felt when he won his first title a year after he was in the promotion, how he felt when he won his second world title. Is he more vindicated when the second one than the first one? How did he feel when everybody was jumping ship to WCW? How did he feel? Like, you know, it's just, there's so many things that I want to hear from him because it matters, maybe because he has been quiet this so long, that I want to hear it from him, but he's also been that locker room leader and that rock that people talk about, you know. I think
That's
it's
Do
cool.
you love him?
I think that's about his legacy. Like, how does he want to
You
be
love him?
remembered? He can't just walk away. Like, now's the time for him to speak out. Like,
Who's his favorite opponent?
yeah,
I don't know. Like, you know, I mean, I think I know, but like there's a lot of people that he was in the ring with for many times.
El Gigante.
Well, let's push forward a little bit. Let's talk about, cuz I'm going to run you on this first version here.
Yeah. What's that?
Yeah, what's up, baby? What is your favorite version of the Undertaker?
I do love me some Biker Taker. I also love me Ministry. So I don't know. It's a toss up between those two. But as far as wrestling goes, I mean, I love his post Biker. You know, when he's fighting Shawn Michaels and the Triple H's, and I like Biker Taker too because Kurt Angle, those guys.
Yeah,
went at it with those guys too. I don't know. It's hard. It's hard to say. I can't even pick one. That's how good he was at all of them. Honestly, I don't think. I mean, he wasn't my favorite wrestler, but as far as how he played his role in the stories that he told and the matches that he had, I never actually had a problem with anything that he's done. So it's hard to say which one is my favorite.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, even though you can't pinpoint it. Bitch.
Yeah, I can't. It's hard.
Jess, what's your favorite, man?
Biker Taker, without question.
Biker?
Yeah, without question.
Biker
I never,
for
the early Taker, it's funny, I'm a massive hypocrite because I had no problem with Hogan kicking out of everybody's finisher or signature move and hulking up and beating him. That was all fine for me. But
Fuck you, Undertaker.
Undertaker, I absolutely hated him when he first came in. Not because he scared me like he did kids, but I hated him no-selling everything and sitting up and doing the whole thing. I hated it. And obviously a lot of people loved it because he's still, during the dark times, he carried Vince in a lot of ways.
And you have to know, too, like, was that even him? No, he was told to do that.
He was told to do that. But I liked the Biker Taker because the end of the Undertaker gimmick, he had good matches in 97, obviously with Michaels in the first Hell in the Cell. He was always in the back telling Vince, let me fucking wrestle. Let me wrestle. Let me work. And he got to wrestle Brett in like 96 and got to wrestle Michaels in 97. And everybody knows what the Hell in a Cell is a fucking classic. Him and Shawn. Yeah. And every time he wrestled Shawn was great. Every time he wrestled Brett was great. So he actually got to work hard. And then when he became the Biker Taker, though, he was actually able to drop all that dead shit and actually just wrestle and work. And his match against Triple H at Mania 17, nobody talks about, but it was great. And everything at Kurt Angle, everything. Yeah, you look at the names he was in there with, of course, they had to, deliver as well. And look at the talent I'm talking about. But once he dropped the dead gimmick the first time, he was able to be the biker gimmick, which I liked. I loved the topical music he used. I love coming down.
Yes.
I love coming down on the motorcycle. I related to him more, not because I'm a big bad Harley driver, but I mean,
copyright.
I related to the Biker Taker more because he was actually human, like he was actually being a normal character in a weird way.
He was a normal dude,
and then when he came back the second time, as the dead guy,
Hogan during that era.
Yeah, when he came back as
I hate to say it.
When he came back as the dead guy in the second time at Mania 20, he was able to kind of take some of that worker Undertaker. He sort of is still the Biker Taker a little bit, but he still, he did the entrances as the dead guy. But when he got in the ring, he worked MMA. And he ran and he jumped over the top rope and he did all of his stuff. And he started working with these younger guys like Orton and Angle and even getting in there with Michaels after they both have matured. What do I say, about those matches? They're all classics and they're amazing. And the Biker Taker, to answer your question, is my absolute favorite
for me.
And I love that he ended it with the Biker Taker. I love that. I loved it.
Yes.
Yeah,
that was
with
awesome.
AJ and something like that. Yeah. Craig, what about you?
Good the edge.
I have trouble distinguishing the different eras with Taker, and I think that's a testament to how he blended kind of the characters and as they morphed all together. So, in my head, I guess I'll just say last 6 years, maybe like when he kind of walked through the smoke and he was untouchable, and he was more dead man, not so much biker, but a hybrid of everything. But like, I have trouble determining the eras of what's
That's
the
after
evil,
20 then.
what's phenom, what's biker, what's the beginnings.
That's not a bad thing though, really, because like trying to distinguish all that is all opinion anyway.
You know what's a great moment from the Biker Taker?
What?
It was when Big Show was backstage looking for the Hardy Boys. He's like, Hardys! And then he goes into a door, and then you see him like fucking like stumble out of the room, and then Undertaker and Kane come out and beat the shit out of him, and he's like laid out on the floor, and then Undertaker goes, "Next time, knock." It's fucking great.
Or when he as the Biker Taker, he even took on different little characters as Biker Taker. Big Red Evil was like a different stage of the Biker Taker. And that match against Jeff Hardy, the ladder match on Raw, like he made Jeff Hardy's singles career from that. On the documentary, you saw him make Randy Orton.
Talked about that.
And Vince actually yelled at him when he came back. He's like, "What are you doing?" Because he was bumping everywhere. He was taking clotheslines over the top rope for Orton. He was taking drop kicks for Orton, bumping.
He's like, "Well, you want
and
me
he's
to
like,
put
you
over
wanted
the
me to
kid,
get the young guy over. That's what I had to do." And I think the Undertaker inside loved it because he's like, "I could fucking work. Like, stop stopping me from working. Like, I love working. Like, I love being a good pro wrestler, which I love, like watching."
So speaking of those matches, though, what is your top match? It's gonna be hard to pick one. Jess,
So him and Shawn Michaels back-to-back years had the two greatest WrestleMania matches I would say ever. Two of the greatest WWF matches ever. Two of the greatest American matches that were put forward by an American wrestling promotion ever. How do you do that back to back? Well, you have Undertaker and Shawn Michaels as the two names you're talking about, but that's crazy. Yeah. They have that amazing match the first time, and then the rematch had to come close. And in my opinion, that is my favorite match. Their second match for some reason. I loved the first one. Don't get me wrong, I loved it. The second one was just phenomenal because they had that pressure. They had to beat the first one, and I think they achieved that goal by at least being equal to. So I will say the second Shawn and Undertaker is my favorite of Takers. Also, Brett versus Brett at SummerSlam 97 was also my favorite Undertaker match. I love that match. I love the ending. I don't think there's a better last 30 seconds of any match in WWF history than the last 30 seconds of Brett versus Taker with Shawn as a special guest referee. The spit take and then everything that they did in that match was just gold, and they worked together so well. Those are my two. The second Michaels match and the SummerSlam 97.
Yeah, check them out on the network. Cuz, what about you? What's your favorite Taker match?
Man, if we're gonna pick a few here, if I went just strictly with moment, it's gonna be Undertaker Brock beating the streak. That's gonna be my favorite as far as moment goes. But match, Jesus Christ, man, I love Bad Blood, Hell in a Cell. I do love that Jeff Hardy and Taker. Like I said, I love the Hogan and Taker match just because of the whole buildup. Final Four, I love that one too.
There's
what was Final Four?
There's so many.
What was Final
Taker
Four?
versus Austin versus Vader versus Brett. In your house, Final Four.
Okay. Yeah.
But as far as Taker, I think I'll have to go with. I think I love Bad Blood.
Michaels on now. Michaels driven into the cage. Michaels catapulted right into the cage. Face first. Somebody better get him back in the cage. Michaels has been lacerated. Shawn Michaels has been
the first time Cell. That's a good choice.
Yeah.
I think I'll take Taker and Foley all day long.
Man.
It just there's so many good ones. I want to try to throw Angle in there, but Angle's stuff is good with Taker, but I don't know if it's my favorite. And I'm an Angle guy, but I'm telling you, man, that stuff with Foley is just magic, and you could never duplicate it. And I think even when things went wrong, they were incessantly right.
Dave.
Great match. Kragers, what you got?
I'm going to bitch out and kind of just say that the four matches, the two with Shawn, two with Taker. I mean, two with Hunter.
That's a good choice.
Yeah. The Hunter Sledgehammer, right?
Yeah. There's the CM Punk one too. God damn.
Just that series of four between, I've never leaned in as much, and that was kind of the moment that he became untouchable. I think in my eyes, like you really start to realize you took advantage of the fact he's been around for so long. You Undertaker matches, and you never quite I never could really get up for an Undertaker main event. But towards the end of that series, I mean, they're
pretty good.
Just amazing.
Where do you put that Taker Orton match?
I loved it. The Mania match. Oh, they had good matches even after Mania. But yeah, that I really like their Mania 21 match as well. I mean, how do you rank Taker matches? Hello?
I don't know.
Oh.
I was getting feedback. Sorry,
I was getting major feedback on me too. Cuz is doing some shit on the screen right now.
Knock it off, cuz.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. So yeah, I had to make sure that feedback cut back. So all right. Here's a question. Should the streak have ended?
Yes.
I'll jump on that. The simple answer is yes. the should it have ended where it ended? I'm not sure. I love that Brock ended it in the ways that it did, but I also felt there were some people that really could have gone over. And I want to make sure it's very clear. I don't think Taker had a choice in a lot of these. I think he would have put Orton over. I think he would have put others over. It just happened to be Brock at the time, right? He probably even would have put Michaels over at one point if he was told to. But yeah, I think the streak should have ended. Maybe it didn't end at the right time. Maybe it could have ended later or sooner, but it definitely needed to end. What do you guys think?
There's again and again. Going for a triple. A third and five to the Undertaker. Brock Lesnar into the cover. Hooks the leg. The streak is over.
I think no.
Whoa, really?
Yep. I don't think there's a reason to ever do it. Like, and I think that after he lost to Brock was a huge example as to why, like, they didn't know what to do. Like, they killed his purpose at that point. If he wasn't ready to retire when he lost to Brock, there's no reason that Brock should have beaten the streak.
I do get that point. I mean, you were saying if the streak was going to end, his career should have ended
Yes.
at that point.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're still saying it should have
And
ended.
I get that
the
the Brock match didn't go as planned because he hit his head, he had a concussion, and it wasn't.
He doesn't
on the
remember it,
note.
right?
Yeah, it wasn't on the Michaels or Triple H level that he wanted to go out in. If that's the case, then he should have went out with Michaels. I'm not saying, well, I mean, Michael should have retired when he retired too. He was getting old as well. But it just I think at that point, if you look after Michaels when he retired Michaels, it was hard for him to top that match. I mean, how could you, right? The two matches. And like Craig said, the 4 years before that, 2 of Triple H in a row, 2 of Michaels in a row. I mean, how you can't top that anymore. So if he was going to lose to Brock, as sad, lose to Brock, end the streak. And if you want to come back as the biker taker for a few years, fine. But like
Change
the Undertaker
gimmick
died.
entirely. Yeah.
The Undertaker died when he lost to Mania. And I think that you watch every Mania after that, he got worse and worse physically, and the character didn't mean as much. And I don't mean that to shit on his 30 years that he's been in the ring, but it didn't mean as much anymore.
He was
because
beat up, man. He was beat up.
He only wrestled once a year to have his Mania match. So after the streak's taken, why do you look forward to him wrestling once a year? You don't.
Well, and that's part of the problem too. They
Yeah.
talked in the documentary just that he would literally wrestle his WrestleMania match. He would have to go get some kind of surgery, rehab the entire time, and get back to the match, and then do it again. He did that for like 3 or 4 years, so he only could wrestle.
And then
once
if
a
you
year.
insist on that, on doing that, when he folded his clothes after he lost to Roman 2 years later, again,
why
he
are you
lost the second
still
time.
going?
Just come back as the biker taker after that and face whoever he faced after that.
and say that's the death of the Undertaker.
yeah,
right?
just
Now
I
you're-
mean,
now you're
I
biker,
just I have
so.
a problem with
I get
that.
it.
I'm like, they shouldn't have ended the streak if they were going to just seriously look like they didn't know what they were doing with their greatest creation after they take the streak. It's like they were like, I don't know. Taker will tell you. He knows what he's going to do. It's like, no, Vince, like you should know what you're going to do. You might have listened to him when he said it's time for me to lose to Brock. That's fine. I respect that decision if Taker was all good with that. And I love Brock too. But I just think that afterwards it showed that they literally had no plan for him. And I'm like, why? Why would you disrespect his career like that? Maybe that's a strong phrase, but why would you disrespect his career like that? Watching him flounder for 3 or 4 years and have shit matches and fumble with moves and not be able to move in there. Like Roman, he looked awful against Roman, and he admitted he did. And I'm not saying I disrespect his legacy, but like he just the ending sequence against Roman, he didn't know where he was. He literally stutter stepped and almost fucked up the spear spot. And it's like, wow, like that's not the guy I wanted to see after he lost his streak. I wanted to see.
And even he was mad about that.
Yes,
and that was the crux of the whole thing, right? Like, the documentary would have been 2 episodes if he would have walked away when he probably should have walked away, which was that moment was perfect with Roman after Roman Reigns putting the gear in the ring, and then they're putting the ring down. I remember reading Twitter that night, and you're seeing the ring as everyone's taking the ring down, and the stuff is still in the ring untouched. They respected him that much. I'm personally okay with the streak ending when it did because it was so shocking that you didn't kind of expect it at that point.
I love the fan reaction, Craig. Oh my God.
This segues to like, so when was the right time? Like I'm segueing like street to career, and the whole documentary is about when is it time to say goodbye? When is it time to call your legacy? And he can't say goodbye. And whenever Vince calls him, hey, come to Saudi Arabia, make some money because Saudi Arabia wants a big marquee matchup. He goes and he shits the bed and he has trouble. So Roman Reigns was the perfect moment for him to walk away, and he didn't. And because,
or like I said, at least retire the Taker character and come back as the biker after that. That's
sure.
fine. That would be a great story. He folded the thing up. Taker's going to retire. And then when Cena, at the year that we went to New Orleans, right? Cena was baiting him the whole time. They made the whole storyline to where even up to the actual match, we didn't know if the Undertaker was going to answer the challenge and come out with Cena. And it didn't look like he was. If he would have came down as the biker and beat the shit out of him because he folded his clothes the year before against Roman and left everything in the middle of the ring, that is great storytelling. It just shows that WWE is incapable of connecting with their audience, whether it's old or new. And that's why they did what they did with The Undertaker. And I get Taker says yes or no to everything. I get that.
Right. I don't think
it just shows
WWE's
the lack of creativity of it wrote itself. When you have him fold his clothes and put it in the middle of the ring, it writes itself that next year or the next time we see him at Mania, it is all biker. It's all biker. And so if he would have came out and beat the shit out of Cena as the biker gimmick, God, we were there live, right, Cousin Craig? Like the pop was huge for the Dead Man. Don't get me wrong, but like for the biker, the place would have went nuts.
But if you heard Dead Man walking,
Dead Man.
Oh Jesus! Like
you wouldn't even be able to hear anything.
And that would have made
hard.
sense. And then so think about everything going forward. He flubs a little bit with Goldberg and Saudi. He flubs, everywhere as the biker. I believe the biker gimmick being a little bit more mortal, but seeing him as the Dead Man, flub in Saudi, flub in other matches, not look good. That's not the Dead Man character. The Dead Man character was flawless. He no-sold. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, that was the Dead Man. Leave it in the middle of the ring when you folded your clothes against Roman, and then just do the biker until he can't physically go anymore. That, to me, is a story that writes itself, but the inability for WWF in the last 5 years or so to pick up on simple shit like that is why it's not COVID. It's just people hating the fucking product. And that's why the ratings are down.
WWE, because like even from the documentary, Undertaker was upset that he felt he could go 30 minutes with Cena at that WrestleMania, and he was fully prepared to and felt that he came back.
Yes.
So not like, forget about like gimmick. Yeah. It was like, how long am I going to wrestle? And he seemed like he didn't know. And I think overall, McMahon's comment about his match with kind of Roman, he said it was always up to kind of Taker, but McMahon said a quote that said, Mark once told me that if we were ever to get into a situation where I'm going out there and I can't do what I'm supposed to do, tell me. I think that most everyone could sense that he was trying, but he wasn't there, and he knew in his heart he wasn't there. And that's what Vince says in that documentary. And then next year, I think he didn't trust him enough to go along with Cena. So I think you like.
So why wouldn't you bring the biker gimmick out for a quick pop? That's the perfect time to do it.
No, I agree.
Right. But I think it didn't even get to that point. It's like, if you can't even agree on how much time you're going to give like Taker, like the conversation of whether you come out in the bike. I think if Taker said, I want to come out in the bike, your gimmick would have done it in a second. I think it probably didn't even cross Taker's mind or wasn't a consideration.
No, Taker made a comment in the documentary. He's like, I know a lot of people online thinks I'm going to come back as the biker or whatever. That's just he didn't say fantasy booking, but he alluded to that's just the fantasy imagination of most people. And in my mind, I'm like, that's the obvious storyline, Undertaker. So physically you're not with it, and mentally you're not with it. Goodbye. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't mean to be a dick to him, because in the 30 years he earns it. But when he said that, I remember saying out loud to myself, that's why you struggled for 3 years or 4 years. Because
you don't know what
you don't know when it's over.
Yeah. You're a parody of yourself. You even say in the documentary, you don't know when. You want to realize when you're supposed to walk away. If you don't realize what the fans
you're mocking
want,
people because they leaked it online that the biker gimmick should come back. But instead of saying, you know what, that's a good idea, and that's the obvious story, he's like, joke's on you. No, joke's on you, man. Like, you have a bad hit, bro.
Last year.
Yeah.
Well, not to mention it's creative looking and go, well, it wasn't our idea, so fuck it.
Possibly. We're getting made. Cuz is doing something. Is that better? No.
No feedback?
Now it's better.
All right, good.
All right, so real quick, should he come back? Yes or no?
I'm gonna say no. I know
I
he
was
will.
gonna say
I know
no.
he will.
Yes or no?
Ended perfectly, by the way.
Just straight yes or no?
No.
Cuz
No.
Craig,
Should he? No. Will he? Yes.
no. All right, here's the big one. What's his place's history as it sits? Do you put him on the monument? Is he the top 4? You got him top 10? Where are you sitting him?
When you watch the documentary, obviously you're going to side more with Undertaker, and you're gonna, you see him be human, so you're kind of cool with that. You're like, wow, I'm seeing shit for the first time. As a wrestling fan, especially for as long as we've all 4 of us have been fans, when you see something that kind of like catches you off guard or something you've never seen before, you gravitate to it. So I say that, like, after watching the documentary, like, I don't know about Mount Rushmore, right? I've always been against that whole conversation. I think that's silly.
Yeah,
talk.
the big 4 is tough.
Because there's so many different ways you could, rank the greatest
True.
of all time. But I will go back to what I said earlier. He's the greatest WWF character ever. And whether you want to give Vince
That's
credit
true.
or Taker credit or both of them credit, he's the greatest character ever. That didn't leave, especially. Like he never left.
True.
And he kept writing it out.
Loyalty's number 1. It's not even a question. He never left.
Yeah.
So he's number 1 there. If you want to put him on that pedestal, you can.
I
If
think
you put
that
him-
now, after 30 years, how can you not say he's in the greatest of all time conversation? How can you
Right.
not say that? And if someone
Yeah,
puts him in
yeah.
their top 5, I cannot, especially the work he did on
I'm
the
not gonna
last
argue
15 years of his career, the
Yeah.
Shawn matches, the Triple H matches, the CM Punk match, all that stuff. Like, God, he got in there with younger guys, not Triple H and Shawn, but with CM Punk, and he still went with them. Like, even when he came back after the loss against Bray Wyatt, he looked great that year. He was a little bit more prepared and ready and didn't hit his head, like he did against Lesnar. So I was like, I don't know how I could ever argue with anybody that's like, Taker's in my top 5. I would have to be out of respect. Like, that's acceptable. That's fine.
Yeah.
Like,
But
yes.
I think you argue when you put him on the monument, the top 4.
I don't even like the
you
monument
have
conversation. I think that's a fantasy. People like that meme because they can, put a visual with the talk.
Yeah,
and
the
like,
face.
honestly, like,
But I always
It's-
go like, there's Hogan, there's Flair, there's Austin. I mean,
there's The Rock. I mean, there's a lot of people
Yeah.
that were mainstream
Taker
guys,
on
but
it over
Undertaker
Rock.
was mainstream as well. You ask a lot of
Sting,
people
yeah.
now. You ask a lot of people now who the Undertaker is. I think they know who he is. Like, truthfully.
That's why I
so
put him on there over the Rock.
yeah, I
Hmm.
don't even. You can have that conversation. That's fine. I don't. The monument thing is hard for me because I don't like excluding people. I just will say simply, if you want to put Taker in your top 5, I won't argue. I don't know. If I'm going to put him in my top 5, I have to think about it. And that's not disrespect towards him. I think that's, there's a lot of.
I think he sits right outside my top 5. And
I think that
don't
if somebody's
that's-
like, you know what, he's in my top 5, I'm going to be like, I respect that. I think that's a great.
yeah,
decision.
I'm not going to give him shit for it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Top 10 is a no question, right? Top 10 is no question.
I'm going to be like, you know what, I respect your decision, but do not tell Dave. He's going to give you so much shit right now. And they're like, really? And then Dave comes in. And he's like, fuck you, Undertaker.
Nah. Craig, where you put him?
I think there's a whole bunch of variables, right? But I think when it comes to, it's not so much tickets sold, it's not so much biggest pops, it's not so much whatever. I think as far as business and what he gave to it and most respected, and I think if you ask every wrestler that's been in a WWE, WWF locker room if they're on Rushmore, I think Undertaker's on Rushmore.
Yeah.
Quite frankly. But again, like you can't. It's an impossible task, but it's also a very, very
And
fun task to debate.
And to their credit, Craig, they know him way better than we do.
I mean, he
don't
was
they?
the judge in Wrestler's Court for all those years,
forever.
like for the last 15.
Off with their
uh,
heads.
And I think that's like that perks some ears up when Cuz said I
Bring
put
me
him
a
over the rock.
six-pack.
That's a hell of a debate, but like,
Goddamn
I
right.
mean, after watching this, like, imagine walking through airports and not being the Hollywood guy and not being the SNL guy, but protecting the business so much that you gave up everything for those 30 years. And I don't know, man, it's tough. But I would say after watching this, I guess I would say yes, but it could change. You see a Rock documentary or a Skinner documentary, 5 hours worth, it might change my mind too. But it was powerful, and I would see he's.
Cuz where you put him in?
I I think I would, even though he's, like I said, he's not one of my favorites of all time. At the same time, kind of is. I think I would put him in top 5 just because of what he means to the business. And honestly, I think as far as the streak ending, I think that was the perfect time because what match did he have right before that? CM Punk, and it was a great match. And he had a bunch of great matches before Punk, Triple H and Shawn Michaels. To me, like if someone would have beat the streak at the end after he had those shitty matches, it'd have been like, well, who cares? But since he had some of those formidable matches where he looked actually pretty damn good and looked like a credible threat, I think that was the perfect time for Lesnar to beat him. I think he should have retired there, but I think it was also good if he would have retired against Roman because that would have been like the passing the torch, and then he should have ended it there. Or like Jess said, come back at Undertaker. But I don't know. That just shows his longevity, and I think, I think you would put him up there as top 5.
Well, there you go. Now,
Yeah, there you
this
go.
awesome podcast that we just did, Jess, you want me to degrade it by asking the last question on your
You
list?
do it and stop talking back.
All right. All right. The last question is, how absolutely gorgeous is Michelle McCool?
She's one. Every time I watch documentary, I was like, oh, I mean, obviously we watch wrestling when she wrestled, and she's pretty, of course. But then I was like, damn, like she's a really good looking woman. Like, take her. Good job, buddy. Like he gets to retire with that. Why didn't he retire sooner? Like if I had Michelle McCool as my wife, as soon as I lost to Lesnar, I'd be like, and about. It'd be Michelle McCool.
Let's be
every
real.
day.
I don't care if you're the Undertaker or not. If you're Michelle McCool, he's not picking you. She's picking him. Let's be
That's
real.
true. That's a good point. But I mean, if I was Taker after I lost to Brock, I'd be like, am I good? I'll be spending the rest of my life with this woman.
Get on out of here, Taker.
Yeah, and usually it's a matter of seconds, 2 or 3 seconds before someone succumbs to the pain. Natalya doing some job to block all that out. And it's over. Michelle McCool has made history.
And she seems like she really cares for him. I didn't in the documentary. I didn't think she came across as fake, right? I really don't think so. I think that she actually didn't want to be, she had her own social media accounts for a while, but she didn't put Taker on there because she respected his legacy and he didn't want to be, not the Undertaker yet, if that makes any sense. So I think that she was always very cool. I think she's a genuine person.
Cool.
No,
and I
she
think
was
that
his rock through like this. You could tell in this whole thing, she's his rock. Like in every.
And she
everything
trains in there with
says
him.
all
It's
about-
kind of cool. They were training together. That's kind of cool.
Right.
And,
I saw that too.
And her point when she talks, she's like, if Vince calls, he'll pick up the phone. So you can tell kind of deep seated, she blames Vince for not making him walk away.
She
Yeah.
says it without saying it, huh?
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Because
So it's a
She's
first
related
quote,
to,
Dave, because
He's
she's
gonna
hot and
fucking
smart
show tomorrow.
and she's fantastic. So there you go.
Is she related to Carlito Cool?
I don't know, cuz. I don't know what that
Carlita cool. She was eating an apple. And
There
it
you
threw
go.
it out.
All right.
Is that what you
All
said,
right,
Cuz?
that's-
So yeah, I mean,
No,
I honestly,
we
I
didn't
just
hear
did.
from Cuz on Michelle McCool's hotness and or role in this. Cuz?
8.
Hit us up on Instagram at O.W.P 2019. Click on Linktree. You can find us on several platforms, including Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and Google Podcasts. Don't forget, we are also part of the Wrestle Hub family, all about wrestling podcast. Find them at The Wrestle Hub on YouTube and Instagram. This is Dave, Jess, Craig, and fucking Cuz signing off with the O.W.P. Have a good one.
And 8 was respectable.
8.
Best regards. Best regards.
I'm at a point this time the cowboy really rides away.